Welcome to today's presentation. Today, I'll be going over Administrative Guide Procedure 30508. We're going to be talking about required equipment when you are on patrol in uniform. So, it begins. All members of the service performing, here it is, patrol duty in uniform are required to carry or wear the following equipment as authorized or indicated. The following items will only be carried when a member of service is, here it is, properly trained by the department. 3 items that specifically needs proper training. First, firearms, because you could have been trained in the use of a Glock. That is the firearm you are required to carry. Or you may have been trained in the use of a 6-hour. That is your firearm that you've been properly trained with, and that is the firearm you will carry. Also, you want to carry the body-worn camera that you've been properly trained for. And lastly, less lethal devices, and to give you 2 examples, like batons and conducted electrical weapons, the CEW. Because some people have been properly trained in the use of a straight baton, and some people have been trained in the proper use of a side-handle baton. You are going to carry what you've been properly trained with. Same thing with the CEWs. Some people have been trained with an X26, and some people have been trained with a Taser 7. You will carry the CEW you've been trained with. Now we're going to break the procedure up into 4 main parts. The first part, we're going to talk about equipment that you're required to have on your person. Second, we talk about equipment on your duty belt, also known as your equipment belt. Third, we'll cover equipment that you must have readily available. And lastly, we'll talk about what equipment has to be required if you're performing civilian clothes enforcement duty, with the exception that would not include undercover duty. So first, we're going to talk about equipment on the person. And we talk about the belts. How many belts do you have to have? 2 belts. You have to have a trouser belt and a duty belt. What's the trouser belt for? It's to keep your pants from falling down. What's the duty belt for? That's for to put your equipment on. So, you will have a trouser belt. It'll be black leather with gunmetal or black buckle. And you also have that duty belt, also known as the equipment belt. And that, you have a choice. You could either have the black leather with gunmetal or black buckle, or the second choice is black nylon with black buckle with the label affixed on the inside that states ES spec number. The assumption is ES stands for the equipment section spec number. It's a specific authorized black nylon belt. So you have 2 belts. Then they give you a little bit more direction about the belt, and they talk about belt keepers. Duty belts will cover the trouser belt. That's right. We have the trouser belt underneath the duty belt, the equipment belt, and both to be worn firmly around the waist and secured with an adequate number of black keepers. How many black keepers is up to you, because it says you will utilize an adequate number. They want it squarely around your waist. They don't want it sagging to one side or the other. We're still talking about equipment on that person for that officer on patrol in uniform. He will be required to have his assigned department smartphone, and of course, it should be charged, because if it's not charged, it won't be useful. And I like how the next item that you have to have on your person is worded. You have to have a properly set serviceable timepiece. So a timepiece could be a wristwatch, it could be a pocket watch, but it has to be 1, properly set, meaning it has to have the right time, and 2, it's got to work. Also, on your person, you have to have your protective vest, as indicated in AG 305-15 protective vest. And I have an interactive learning module for that procedure also. And what we're referring to is when you have to wear your protective vest on patrol in uniform. And we know everybody on patrol in uniform has to wear their protective vest when they leave the station house. But in that procedure, they say there is an individual who can allow you to remove your protective vest when you're in uniform and leaving the station house. And that would be your bureau chief or deputy commissioner only. Only those two individuals. So if you're assigned to a precinct, your bureau chief would be the chief of patrol. The chief of patrol say, hey, you are in uniform, you are leaving the station house, I could exempt you. That bureau chief can exempt you from wearing the protective vest. And of course, we go into great detail in AG 305-15. And then you have to have the cards on your person. How many cards? An appropriate amount of the right-to-know business cards and the right-to-know business cards general. And you should be aware, we discussed this in 304 series. And in the 304 series general regulations, it also states that you should carry an appropriate amount of those right-to-know business cards. And the last two things they tell you you have to have on your person when you're on patrol in uniform is your ID card. You got to carry your ID card. And you also have to carry
Department issued New York City Transit NYPD Omni Police Pass.
And you also have to carry your body-worn camera when issued. And there it is. That's the first list of items that you're required to have on your person when you're performing patrol duty in uniform. Next, we're going to talk about equipment on your duty belt, also known as your equipment belt. Now, we're going to go through two setups. The first setup is for right-handed individuals. It's considered the right-handed setup. Be aware, if you're right-handed, your dominant hand is the right hand. That is considered your strong side. The undominant hand is your left hand, and that will be your support side. Don't mix the two up. Strong side, right hand, when you're right-handed. Left hand, that is going to be your support side. It's important to be aware of that because of the two different setups. Now, understand you have to have your duty belt set up correctly. It's got to be put in this order. Why? Will the department be checking that it's in this order? Yes, they will. The order of the equipment placed on the belt will be inspected when reporting for the annual pistol qualification cycle. So when you qualify with your pistol, they're going to make sure that this equipment belt is set up correctly. Then we also have the setup for left-handed individuals. Your dominant hand is your left hand, and that is considered your strong side. So your right hand isn't your dominant hand, that is your support side. And as I said, this setup and in the correct order will be checked at the annual pistol qualification cycle. So now we're going to go through the items on the belt. Now, please be aware, in this presentation, I'm going to be going over a right-handed setup. Right? It's basically laid out opposite for that left-handed setup. So we're going to start out by talking about the first item on the belt, and this is going to start with the support side. You have to have that double magazine pouch with a flap and snap closure, black in color, and affixed in a vertical position. Now, a few important points here. First important point is there are three characteristics of that double magazine pouch. The first characteristic is it has to be a flap and snap closure. Second, it has to be black in color. And third, it's got to be affixed in a vertical position. It's got to be a vertical position. All right, you know, some buffs, they put it horizontally, no good. That double magazine pouch has to be in a vertical position. And we know we're talking about this is the support side. Now we got to talk about the magazines that you have on your equipment belt. We know that 2 are going to go in that double magazine pouch, and 1 is going to be in your firearm itself. So you will need 3 magazines for the authorized service 9mm pistol. And 1 is going to go in your firearm, and the other 2 is going to go in a double magazine pouch. 1 magazine will be filled with 15 cartridges in the firearm with 1 additional cartridge in the chamber. So your firearm that is in that holster will have 16 rounds in total. 15 cartridges in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. And then we have 2 magazines filled with 15 cartridges in a double magazine pouch. So we got 3 magazines, 1 in your firearm, 2 in a double magazine pouch. And each magazine will have 15 cartridges. Now, they also make this next statement. Maintain maximum number of rounds in other magazines carried. Example, off-duty, special weapons, etc. A general guideline. They want you to have the maximum number of rounds in that magazine. So they know if you're involved in a shooting, how many rounds you had in it to begin with. Because it's always supposed to have the maximum number of rounds in that magazine. Now we're going to talk about the second item on our equipment belt, and that is also on our support side. And that is our CEW, our conductive electrical weapon. And it'll be attached on, here it is, as I said a minute ago, the support side. What side? The support side, which is opposite the firearm if a CEW is assigned. And we know to be assigned to CEW, you have to be trained in the CEW, and you're carrying it on your support side, the second item on your equipment belt. The third item is going to be the radio. And do we have to make sure that radio is in the case? Of course. Your assigned portable radio carried in the assigned radio case. Third item in our equipment belt. Now, the fourth and fifth items on our equipment belt, we're still talking about items on our support side. And it is the OC pepper spray, the fifth item. The OC pepper spray device and holder, and again, it'll be on support side opposite the firearm. Yes, the pepper spray goes in the holder. It is our fourth item, and it will be on our support side. So be aware, they specifically state the CW and the OC pepper spray have to be on a support side, in addition to all the other items we went through. But it specifically states that for the OC pepper spray and the CW. And the last item on our support side is going to be the flashlight and the holder. And of course, just like the pepper spray, the flashlight will be in the holder. Now, we're going to start talking about the strong side. Everything up to this point was the support side. Now we'll start talking about the strong side. So the sixth item, which is now on our strong side, will be an optional item. It's the only piece of equipment on our belt that is optional. They say department-issued tourniquet if you're trained and equipped, issued, but it's optional. You could be trained and it's been issued to you, but you don't have to wear it. But If you have been trained and it's been issued to you, you can wear it if you want, and that's our 6th item, the tourniquet. And the 7th item. And again, the 7th item is still talking about our strong side, and that is going to be an expandable baton. Expandable baton. And what is it going to be carried in? In a black nylon, polycarbonate, or plastic holder if qualified. Now, if you've not been properly trained in that expandable baton, you're not qualified in that expandable baton, you don't carry it. And what do you have to carry if you have not been qualified in the expandable baton? If the uniform member of service is not qualified to carry an expandable baton, but the baton will be carried. Can't carry the expandable baton, then you got to carry the straight baton. And we'll see later on that baton is one of the items that you must have readily available. And everybody has to have it readily available, whether you're required to carry it on your equipment belt or not. And now we have the 8th item. And the 8th item is our firearm. And of course, your firearm has to be in an authorized holster. Item 8, authorized firearm. And remember, what is the authorized firearm? It's the one you've been properly trained with, whether it's a Glock or a SIG or whatever. And it's got to be in a regulation holster as authorized by the Firearms and Tactics section, designed with the safety lock for use with the service 9mm pistols. And you'll see the Firearms and Tactics section page on the Department Intranet for more details. Then we got to talk about the handcuffs, both the key and the handcuffs themselves, and what we're going to store the handcuffs in. So item 9 is going to be handcuff holder and key, and item number 10 is going to be the handcuffs and the case. Very important is the case. First, before we go over the case, the handcuffs. What will they be? They have to be regulation, either silver or black metal handcuffs. Silver or black, it doesn't matter as long as they're regulation handcuffs. But this is what they have to be carried in. Be very careful here. It's carried in a 1, black, 2, fully enclosed handcuff case that meets the specifications of the equipment section. 2 characteristics of that handcuff case. It's got to be black and it's got to be fully enclosed. I repeat, a fully enclosed handcuff case. Now, can you carry a second set of handcuffs? You may. They don't tell you how, but they say a second set of handcuffs is optional. Is optional. So item 9 and 10, item 9 is the handcuff key holder and handcuff key, and item 10 is that case with the handcuffs in it. And there it is. We went over the items on the equipment belt. Make sure you know each item. Make sure you know the specific specifications of each item. And you have to know the order of the items on your equipment belt. Specifically making sure you understand the difference between the strong side and the support side. The strong side and the support side. And now we're at the third part of this procedure, and that is equipment that must be readily available. You must have a regulation traffic whistle and belt whistle holder. Do you have to wear it? No, it has to be readily available. And you have to have a reflective safety vest. It has to be readily available. You must have that dual-purpose personal protection scooter helmet with face shield as indicated in AG, Administrative Guide Procedure 30405, Performance on Duty. Again, helmet, dual-purpose, readily available. Now, be careful about summonses, because when you get promoted to captain, you don't got to carry summonses no more. But if you're below the rank of captain, you carry a sufficient amount of summonses. If below the rank of captain, that means police officer, sergeant, lieutenant, below the rank of captain. If you're assigned to enforcement duties, you're assigned to enforcement duties and you're a police officer, sergeant, lieutenant, you have to carry a sufficient number of summonses. Now, we talk about this in 216.23, and that is the overdose procedure in the 80 case series. You must have readily available the department-issued opioid antagonist. Example, Noxalone. Yes, in 216.23 overdose incident, that's all they talk about is Noxalone, which is the opioid antagonist. You have to have it readily available if one, trained and issued by the department. They train you in it, they issued it to you, you have to have it readily available. And in the overdose procedure, it says you have to carry it if you have been trained and issued it. You also have to have readily available a straight baton with the baton holder. Now, we already said that if you are not qualified in the expandable baton, you must carry that straight baton on your equipment belt. But regardless if you have to carry it on your equipment belt or not, everybody has to have a straight baton with baton holder readily available. You also have department-issued trauma kit, if you've been trained in it, readily available. And what we spoke about already, the tourniquet may be worn on the belt, which we went over. It's the one optional item on our belt. And there it is, the third part's done. Now we get into the last part, specifically required equipment if you're performing enforcement in civilian clothes, with the exception of undercovers. Undercovers don't have to follow these rules. But if you're performing enforcement in civilian clothes, you will carry the authorized firearm in an authorized holster. You're required to carry a minimum of one extra fully loaded magazine. One extra fully loaded magazine. So you have one magazine in your firearm, and now you can have one fully loaded magazine, one extra one. Civilian clothes enforcement duty, you will carry regulation handcuffs with the key, of course, and you have to carry your assigned department smartphone, and it should be charged. You also have to carry an appropriate amount of those business cards, the right to know business cards and the right to know business cards general. And of course, you're conducting enforcement duty in civilian clothes, you have to have the color of the day head or armband on their person. You have to have OC pepper spray, and you got to have an assigned department body-worn camera. And civilian clothes enforcement, you have that nylon windbreaker jacket, and they tell you when it will be worn when you're conducting enforcement duty in civilian clothes, to be worn when present at a police incident. You will also carry the CEW, conducted electrical weapon, also known as a taser, if available and trained. And you will wear a protective vest as indicated in AG 305.15 protective vest. And we know if you're conducting enforcement action in civilian clothes and you leave the command, you have to wear your protective vest. But we know in 305.15 it says your immediate supervisor can allow you not to wear that vest if that supervisor deem it appropriate. But generally, of course, you have to wear your protective vest. And there it is. Please make sure you break this procedure down as I did. Know what has to be on your person when you're performing patrol duty in uniform, what has to be on your equipment belt, and what has to be readily available. And then know what equipment has to be carried when you're performing enforcement duty in civilian clothes. And we have one additional data statement to go through, a rather important one. Members of the service are reminded that unauthorized patches, emblems, insignia, and or other adornments are prohibited to be worn with a uniform, and they provide us examples. Unauthorized items include, but not limited to, command-related merchandise, political slogans, and or logos of comic book, movie, or similar characters. Yeah, I remember this hit the news. Okay, somebody was offended because somebody had a Punisher patch that is unauthorized. And that's why I use that as my image here in my example. And what about when you're in civilian clothes conducting enforcement duty? Are these items also prohibited? They are. In addition, members of service performing civilian clothes enforcement are not to wear clothing containing inappropriate design stamps or messages. Yeah, you can't have that Punisher patch. It is considered unauthorized, whether you're in uniform or you're conducting enforcement in civilian clothes. And they tell you exactly who's going to be responsible to make sure that there are no unauthorized items. Patrol supervisors, unit supervisors will ensure compliance with these prohibitions during roll call inspection and at other times during a tour. That's right, you're going to be checking to make sure that they don't have any of these unauthorized items at roll call and during your tour. Because guess what? That supervisor, hey, why does he have that item on? That's unauthorized. You're supposed to be checking for it at roll call and during the tour. And then we have the latest update to this procedure. And it is specifically a captain's duty, a commanding officer's duty. Any requests to change or propose additions to the 1 uniform, 2 optional uniform items, or 3 required equipment are to be completed and submitted by who? By the commanding officer, captain's duty, on a report on typed letterhead, along with the completed uniform and equipment review committee questionnaire. And that typed letterhead and that questionnaire will be sent through channels to the chief of department. So now we have this specific captain's duty. It's important because it is written in 3 separate procedures. It's written in 30508, required equipment, the procedure we're going over right now. It's also written in 30501, uniform general. And it's written in 30504, optional uniform items. So all 3 procedures say the same thing. If that commanding officer would like to change that uniform, optional uniform items, or the required equipment, he's going to submit that typed letterhead along with that questionnaire to the chief of department through channels. And there it is, 30508.
It was effective on January 6th of 2026 and was last revised by revision order number 3 of 2026.
My name's Mike Yanisik. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to email me at mike@elitestrategictraining.com or email my son Connor at connor@elitestrategictraining.com or call us at 516-761-9101. Keep studying, stay focused, and stay motivated. Till next time.